And 3, 2, and 1. You have just been taken hostage for reasons you don't understand. Who are you taking with you to help you talk your way out of it?
Who do I get? And my choices of anybody, right?
It could be anyone.
Anybody.
It could be anyone.
Fantastic. I am taking Martin Luther King Jr.
Wow.
Yeah.
Classy.
Come on. Who could talk to anybody and just go and just make them you know what? You're right. You're right. Let's do it. You guys should go. Just go. It's fine. You're fine. Just in a heartbeat.
I love it. That's amazing.
Well, I feel lame now because you took the really classy answer, and I was just gonna say I'm taking my 14-year-old Jack because he is right at that age where he is a little negotiator. He's taller than me, so he's not that little. He now rests his chin on my head, and I have to hug him from below his armpits because his shoulders are so much higher than mine now. But anything you tell him to do, he's got like, what about this plan? What if we did this instead? What about this?
That's
you raise
brilliant.
that price to this? Like you're offering 10, but could we get to 15? Like, how about 12? And I think he just wears you down a little bit. I think it'd be like his first grade teachers used to tell us he's very verbal. And that has not changed. But his logic and his persuasion techniques have improved. And I just think he'd be good in a crisis.
I agree.
Yeah, he's good, dude.
It's like a mini. Every teenager goes through a mini Chris Voss phase. Right? The FBI negotiator, where they're just all right. Whoa, let's talk about that for a second.
Right.
Reel it back for just a moment. Yeah.
So of course I'm taking Jeff Rogers with me. I'm taking the Improv King.
Well,
Martin Luther King. So
right.
We will not be getting out of that, but we will have fun hanging out. I can promise you that.
It will be a party.
But it will be fun. It will be fun.
I guarantee that. Yeah, we'll have some fun.
Die happy.
And to our listeners, welcome to the Kimberly and Coach Show, where we bring you actionable practices you can use in your leadership and collaboration. Today, I'm Coach. Kimberly is right next to me. Today, we have the National Speakers Association Storytelling Champion with us today, an award-winning speaker, both of renown and mystery, who helps companies become unstoppable. Jeff Rogers, everyone.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Whoop, whoop. Great to be here.
We have definitely been trying to get Jeff to come on our podcast for, I don't know, like 3 years now. Like
at least a good solid year.
Come on.
At least a good solid year.
I was being held hostage.
You were being held hostage.
So I wasn't able to, but I got out because I won't drop any names, but you know.
You had to do a seance first, so it took some time. We actually met in a program through a mutual mentor, David Newman. And one of the key elements in your work and in ours is that we really resonate around is authenticity and connection. And it's always valuable in the workplace. So, Jeff, how do you help companies kind of get to and value and implement those pieces of authenticity and connection? A lot of companies think those are nice to have, but unimportant. So how do you get them there?
Well, I think that's that mindset in itself, that's sort of nice to have, but we don't need it in order to succeed. Look, every study that's been done about it, every book that's written about it talks about the culture. And if that culture is strong enough, it can withstand any challenge that's put in front of it and overcome it and thrive, regardless of the scenario that they find themselves. And what I find that most companies disregard is the value of that culture and how much they are responsible for making it authentic, number one, but number two, making it real, making it palpable, making it so that it's an attractant as opposed to that'd be nice to have. I think one of the ways that we really grow our culture is through the stories that we tell. it's not through the products that we sell, but the stories that we tell each other and that we tell folks who are in our circles, both, networking wise, work wise, family wise, neighborhood wise. If we're talking about our company, like, my company does a real cool thing around how it supports, NGOs, or how it supports this, or how it supports us as employees, or our plan for that is really great. Or, our CEO did the coolest thing, but told nobody about it.
Oh.
Those stories are immediate attractants. I mean, it's like, oh, bring me in there. That's why people get so excited when they hear those stories. And when we talk about brand stories, that's really what we're talking about. It's the external telling of our internal culture. That's the best brand story. And so if the stories that you're hearing from your folks and your people aren't excited, aren't passionate, aren't really just, it may have nothing to do with the products or the process or the system or the machine, but about everything else that goes around it, then start building that up a little bit more. It's a great barometer for recognizing we got to get our culture aligned here, and so that people are excited to come in and do what we do for the people that we do it.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, I think that's
so
incredible. One of the companies that we work with, we often work with a tool called the Impact, and there's one of the intelligences is around storytelling and the kind of the people who kind of guard the story. And it happens to be the thing that this company has like the lowest on their team map. And so some of the work that we've gotten to do with them is to say, you have a lot of great stories, but you don't really prioritize telling them. And so we've found ways to build kind of telling some of the stories of what's happening to each other and celebrating those stories. And it's been really neat because we've gotten to work with them over the last 2 years as they've done that and kind of instituted times to celebrate the good stories. And it's not that they weren't happening, it's that they just weren't telling them. And so they're this very cool kind of mom and pop shop. They work with big dollar stuff, but they're still kind of a small group. And because they didn't really have that personality, it wasn't baked in. People weren't even aware of some of the cool things that they were doing all the time. So it's been a fun thing.
It can get lost in the grind, right?
Yeah.
Especially for smaller companies that are looking to scale, looking to grow. The focus is on that scalability and that growth. The thing is that you have to keep one eye of the 5 that you've got in your forehead, right? You got to keep one on making sure that you're building that culture that you want to keep, because at some point it is going to extrapolate to the point where you can't control that any longer. It's going to grow beyond what you're capable of controlling. So the way to make sure that it grows the way you want it to is to keep nurturing it until it gets to that point where it then, like a great, I wanted to say like a great tree, right? It gets to the point where now it's so massive and the branches go in all these different directions that you had no idea that it was going to go in that direction, but it would have never gotten there if it hadn't been watered and tended properly and protected a little bit from the elements and from the different challenges that can face. I don't want to get too deep into the metaphor, but you get the idea of how nurturing it can make it grow to a point where you don't have to do that as much. Other caretakers will, be brought in naturally.
Yeah. The idea that collective intelligence of the rest of your crew, you're not carrying the load alone, right?
Right. And the different perspectives.
Yeah, I have a curiosity for you. As you've worked with companies, they're like, Jeff, come in, help us be unstoppable. We need some help. Have you ever gotten into a company and been like, none of these stories are good? Like, this story sucks.
What?
And if so, like, what do you do in that case?
No, I have never done that. Never. That's so great. And if you could name who it was and what sure, of course. To be brutally honest, there's been a couple that are like very much were built for performance and for execution and not for growth.
Mm.
And so you'd think that they would naturally go together, but you have to have all of the ingredients in order for that real natural growth that can happen and that scalability. So in those situations, you can't create a culture in a moment. It's not a
Yes.
pin drop in a map, but you can start nurturing, right? You start planting a lot of seeds. In any good garden, you don't just plant one seed and go, I hope,
Yes.
fingers crossed. I hope that
So good.
seed grows, right?
Yeah.
No, you plant a bunch of seeds
Yeah.
and you water it and you nurture it, and then you see which ones grow the best.
Mhm.
There's been situations where we figured out that we could share the stories via now this goes back in the day a little bit via CD because their sales force was in the car. And so it was like, okay, great. Monthly, we're going to ship them a CD that they can listen to in the car of best practices, stories that are going on, and everything else. But it was a way of connection. Other folks, it's look, they got time for a 5-minute video post from a leader on Monday morning, a motivational Monday video post of, hey, you know what happened last week? Charlie over in the Southeast region went into a customer and they'd share a story, or they'd have that person share a story, or whatever that was. So that was something that just a one-hit wonder, but they knew to start expecting them, and they now could start building those stories. Here's the other great thing about that is that we worked with a company that they wanted their sales force to sell everything on the truck, right? Sell the entire portfolio to their clients, but they were afraid to sell a couple of these products because they didn't have a depth of knowledge in this technology. They knew about this and they didn't know about security. So software as a service, didn't know about security. And so what we did was we created a couple of stories for each of those areas and divisions that they weren't confident in, that they could share with the client. And great stories of how they saved the day, and they were doing amazing work in these other divisions, but they never knew. So when you tell a story, you get 85 to 90% of the credit for telling that story. And that's just the same thing with humor. You get credit for attempting the humor or attempting the story. And so then that halo is, you get to bask in as the teller of that story. You had nothing to do with it. It's like hearing a joke and repeating a joke from a comedian, and everybody laughs like, "Oh, that's so great." You get the credit of bringing it, not of coming up with it. That's not what you're saying, but of bringing it out and bringing it up. And so that same thing can be achieved with sharing the great stories. So there's been one or two that have been troubled by that, but I find that if they're looking to fix that, that's always the best first step.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think an interesting question is like, is the thing whatever we're doing right now, what story is that telling? What is this action? What's the story that this action is telling?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the story we're trying to tell with our company is divorced from the actions that we're doing.
Ooh.
And so when we start to connect, like, okay, this is the story we want from our company. What are the choices we're making today that actually tell that story, so that someone else will go, do you know what this company did? They did this and this and this, and the story that builds is this.
Right.
So sometimes I think you have to reverse engineer it, because it's like, well, the story you're telling is boring. So if you want a different story, let's build a different story. Like, what are the blocks of that story? Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in real fast. I would take that even one step further. What about the story we tell to ourselves?
Yes.
And do our actions align with that story, right?
Yes.
And so part of my unstoppable idea is that we have two storytellers in our head. And at any given time, we can listen to either one of them, whomever we want to really empower. The one storyteller is telling us about all the things that we've done wrong, the imposter syndrome, the mistakes that we've made, that's conjuring up all the fear. And the other one is extolling the virtues of the chances that we've taken, and the courage that we've shown, and the resilience that we're capable of. And we can switch the dial back and forth as easily as we want to. And it literally is just a matter of making that decision. I'm not going to listen to that right now. I'm going to choose to listen to this one. And that's part of the whole idea is that life is full of if,
Yeah.
and it's either if only or what if, and you get to decide which one that you want to embrace. And so that's that idea of that story that we tell ourselves on any given day. And it's that story can be, I haven't worked out. I'm not a person who works out, right? And the reality is, well, I just haven't worked out to right now. But if I worked out now, well, I would be a person who works out. And I want to be a person who works out. I'm going to go work out, right? It's that it doesn't have to be like this huge monumental thing. Just a little shift. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's a different game.
Yeah.
I think it was last year, you were in a short film where you're at a bar.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, what you just talked about, was threaded through that film.
Would we be able to link it?
Oh, yeah. I'm sure we can, right?
Oh, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still out there. But there's just these moments where your character's at the bar and writing down these ideas and like what the character's experiencing. And I just, after watching, I was just like, oh man, it got me. I mean, it was just this amazing illustrative, but it wasn't preachy. It wasn't preachy.
Right.
And that's why I love, because you show the process rather than tell. And it's just this beautiful blend of those ideas throughout. So speaking of this, so both you and I have some improv in our DNA. Now you took yours far further than I ever did. You've worked with Second City in Chicago and a whole bunch of famous people like Tina Fey and Steve Carell, Stephen Colbert, Amy Poehler. So I know you bring improv into your work with companies. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I honestly believe, first off, I believe that everybody is an improviser. And I can prove it because we all have imaginations.
Yeah.
And so that really is what improvisation is about, is tapping into your experiences and your imagination and combining them and see what comes up. And so we're all there. What trained improvisers know is that we can apply it towards any given situation. We can apply it as a modality, as a methodology to get to a creative place. And so, and create a psychologically safe environment in order to do that. So I just posted on LinkedIn today, the World Economic Forum talked about what the skills are going forward that are going to be in demand from now until 2030. And so it was creativity, spontaneity, adaptability. It was all these things that improvisation teaches us to be, because it teaches us not to live in the past or to think about the future, worry about the future, be present in the moment. When you're present in the moment, you're able to look at things in a much different way. And so I use yes and, which is a cornerstone of improvisation, right?
Sure.
But I use it slightly differently because I believe that yes and actually means radical acceptance of the reality that you're in the moment.
Okay.
So that means I accept where I am and the beliefs and foundations that I have, but I also accept that you have your own reality that you're in, and that has as much value as mine. So that acceptance allows me to see the world as it is. The and is the action to build to where we want to get it. So by not negating anybody's reality, right, which is so much a part of the friction that we have working in teams and organizations and groups, is that I have to negate your reality in order for mine to be true. It's like, no, you don't. We don't have to do that at all. In fact, what we need to do is build to that third place, which blends our realities, and we can create a greater, the sum is greater than the total of its parts, something along those lines, right?
Yeah, you got it.
It gets it to that third place, and that's where the magic is. That's where we really get to see exponential thinking, innovations, and large, writ large and small. innovation doesn't have to be a complete reworking of, oh, a car should only have 3 wheels and not 4. No, it can just be a little bit tilted so it's aerodynamic and it uses less gas. That's as much of an innovation as, changing the entire dynamic or the mechanics of a thing. So I absolutely think the tenets of improv, and I do use these with all of my clients, whether they know I am or either implicitly or explicitly.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Accept and act, right? And listening, deep listening. And then the last one for me is I got your back. Support. Creating that psychologically safe environment that enables people to explore and become their best and to try things, to win or learn, not win or lose. All those things enable us to really achieve some great stuff. Now, there's enough constraints. I'm not saying you want to live in a nice, a flowery field where everybody does everything for each other. No, the constraints are we've got to get products out on time. We've got to do it within these regulations. We've got only this much capital in order to create the machines that we need to use in order to do what we want to do. Whatever that is, there are plenty of constraints, which is great because that drops in a little drop of cortisol in the back of our brain that we got some pressure. It's a great focusing agent. The problem is that we're built, and I know I've gone off on this. I didn't mean to take up so much time.
No, come on now, preach it.
But we're built to negate, right? It takes 3 positive thoughts to fight a negative thought. We are made to negate and to go to the negative because we believe it to be a preservation skill. But in our modern times, we really don't have to worry about the tiger anymore coming around the corner into the cave. We're there. We made it. We can start thinking about how can we support each other to get the most out of each other in the challenging situations that we're facing as a company, as an individual, as teams, organizations, whatever it is. So if we can get to that point, those teams just become unbeatable. They really do. Unstoppable. And that's kind of the idea behind that is they become unstoppable. Not that they can't be stopped, but they're going to get back up again. They're not going to stay stopped. And that's really it. That's what you want. And I don't want to use the phrase at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, that's what you want to be is in a team that's going to, take the hits. Might get knocked down, but they're going to get back up and they're going to keep going and get to a place that you never even realized that they were capable of achieving.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I love about what you're saying is we deal with a lot of conflict in the work that we do. And, you were talking about my reality and your reality, and we're trying to get together to this third reality and where the sum is better than the 2 parts. And I feel like when we hit conflict and we're used to negating, and that's where our wiring takes us, what we want to do is win. And so we can double down into like our thinking, whether it's right. So we're not listening because we want to win. We're not listening to the other person anymore. And often in a team, if either person wins, the team loses. Because you're getting one person is going to shut down and one person is going to like be a little smarmy, And so you end up with the sum is less than the 2 parts, But when you have each other's back and you're really listening to each other and you, like you said, I might get it wrong. You said accept and move or accept and act or something.
Yeah. Accept and act. Exactly that. Yeah.
That's better because alliteration. You're good at this. So accept and act.
Professional speaker or something.
Professional speaker. So if you accept that my reality and your reality aren't matching, but we both don't want to stay here. And we take that improv approach to like, we're going to have each other's back anyway. We're going to accept that and move towards something better. Then you get the fullness of both and you get something more than the individuals, and that's always like kind of like the holy grail you're reaching for. And conflict makes it so hard because now as soon as you start trying to beat the other person, it's like you're already losing in terms of accessing creativity and adaptability, all of those things. And so I just, that's what's coming up for me. And it's so interesting. I love the improv spin on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So right now in the U.S. and well everywhere, there's lots of things happening, things changing at an exponential pace.
To our international audience, yeah, we know.
Yeah,
we do know.
With the political space, with AI trying to take over the world, what kind of challenges are CEOs facing right now, and what kind of tools might be available to help them?
So the ability to lead really comes down to the ability to adapt. I think the ability to adapt fundamentally, see it for what it is and then adapt to the reality is what every captain of a ship will tell you is the most critical tool that they can avail themselves of, right? You can't make the wind blow. You can't, that's not in your control. What you can do is set the sails. And that'll determine how you get to go where you want to go. And so I think we don't treasure adaptability as much as we should because we see it as, well, that's waffling. Or at least in the US a lot, we see it as a weakness if somebody changes their mind. If they take the total of what they're looking at and change their mind based on the information that they've gotten. Yeah. But the ability to stay open to that, to hear people as they're conveying that information and look at it with a different lens enables people to really adapt. I mean, that's why in situations where two things just crossed my mind. In the there's a great film that Adam McKay, a guy I worked with at Second City, The Big Short, right? The entire financial industry were completely engrossed in these mortgages, subprime mortgages, and these packages, right? And there were 3 or 4 guys who were out there going, this really doesn't seem right. How can this be the way things are? These are not worth the value that they're getting the money for these, and then they're trading them back and forth. What is this? And those are the people who looked into it, and they were open to one of them. I can't remember that he was a PhD in economics and finance, but he did it to the point where he lost hundreds of millions of dollars first betting The Big Short against the market and ended up making billions of dollars afterwards. And I'm not judging either way, but he knew that this wasn't right and that this was going to correct. And he knew it to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. How many of us would believe that strongly in the reality of what he discovered? And so there's that thinking where the emperor has no clothes. Yeah. And so you have to be able to, I think, as a leader, adapt to the reality that you're in. Again, that radical acceptance of your reality, and then adapt to it and find the way to get to where you want to go as you navigate those storms and those seas.
Yeah, right on.
So good. So
good. So good. Jeff, it has been awesome hanging out with you. How do people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you more?
If you hear my cat in the background, she is trying to get a hold of me right now.
Well,
as a matter of fact,
she's welcome to make a little cameo.
Absolutely,
if you're so inclined.
Absolutely.
She's literally, if she could be standing there going, "Are you still doing this?" Because I have not been. She's been fed
Jeff's cat.
Perfectly fine. Yeah, exactly. It's a little too chatty in here for her. This is where she takes a little. I would love folks if they were to find me on the website, www.jeffrogersunlimited.com. Let's link together and connect on LinkedIn. I post there probably 3 times a week, somewhere in that range, and just thoughts that are, I think are interesting to folks about how to get along, how to move things forward, how to think differently. A lot of times I'll leave a tool or two on there that hopefully will spur some creativity and the juice is just long enough to do things a little bit differently in your next brainstorming session or something along those lines.
Excellent.
Love it. Love it. And of course, all those will be in the show notes attached to everywhere this is at on Apple and Spotify and YouTube and like a billion other places.
Yeah.
And to you, our dear listener, thanks for tuning in to the Kimberly Coach Show, where we endorse dancing in the streets of New Orleans with a beignet in one hand and a whiskey in the other. We'll see you next time.
I'm always curious about what we're going to endorse at the end of these. Cheers, friends.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Jeff Rogers.
Jeff Rogers.
I don't know what else to say.
Oh my gosh, so fun. Now you guys know why we were chasing him. Like, please come on our podcast.
Yes, I want to get in. Like, I met Jeff 3-ish years ago. And I think it was in Miami.
Yeah.
Miami, Florida. We're having a David Newman retreat.
It was our first one, right?
Yeah.
And then we didn't realize it, but we actually sat with like all the coolest people. Sort of on accident. We were like, these seats are free. We were like with like all the elite people in this program, including Jeff Rogers. And it might have taken us a little while to invite him on our podcast. We also weren't doing our podcast.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But yeah, so ever since I heard Jeff speak at, I don't remember, it was the next one the next year, which I think was in San Diego. He was like, this guy, I don't even know, So
after we do an interview, we always try to come on and talk about like, what were the practices of value? What's the thing you could put in your pocket and take into your day as a leader?
Right.
And there were so many nuggets in that. It's hard to pick, but I'm going to go with, I loved what he talked about from taking from the improv world, accepting the reality and then acting, accept and act. And the way that we try to fight the reality and argue, like he said, it's always if, but it could be what if, or it could be if only, or it could be what if. It could be if only or what if. And so we spend a lot of time looking backwards. It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't be this way. But the faster that we can get to accept and then act, like now we can move forward once we get to acceptance. And sometimes that is accepting the other person. Sometimes it's accepting the reality that we're in. But to kind of take a moment, accept where we are, and then figure out where you want to get to and act. And I just think a clarifying thought process for any leader.
Yeah.
Like, how do I accept and act in this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things. Like personally, like Jeff talked about the two voices, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And the switching. So like,
just flip that switch.
Just flip that switch.
It's like, oh man, I'm gonna envision that for the rest of my life. I'm gonna flip that off.
Yeah. But then from a teamwork standpoint, I want to take my biggest takeaway, I think, was the making sure that you have the other person's back, even if you're in conflict with that other person.
Yes.
But here's the thing: like, what's going on in here, right? What's going on in our heads, in our hearts, in our if we're going to go woo-woo, the spirit side of things. Whatever you're holding back here comes out here, out of your mouth. It comes through in your body language. It comes in through how you hold the tension in your face, everything. And if I'm in conflict with somebody and I'm holding this idea that, you know what? We might be at odds, but I'm still going to have your back.
Yes.
What if that comes through?
Yeah.
Like, what's that going to do to the negotiations and your conversations and your everyday interactions where that person might be like, what is going on with that other person? I hate him.
I do think, any couples counselor or any mediator will tell you there's like good ways to fight and there's dirty ways to fight. And like, to handle conflict while still holding the other person's dignity, while still valuing them, while still being in their corner, having their back. You can be in conflict with someone that you deeply love, and like you can be in conflict to say like, this is not good and we need to fix it so that we can all be well. And that is very different than
I'm going to take you out.
I was thinking of all these mean things to say. I was like, I can't say any of those things on the podcast.
This is a family show.
A friend of mine was telling me that on the internet, their favorite response to trolls right now is die mad about it.
Thanks, Madison.
So I just kind of laugh in my heart sometimes, like, oh, well, die mad about it. Because Because it's a corrective for me because I care way too much what people think, especially people that I don't know and don't even like. And then I'll just care so much what they think. And Madison says, die mad about it.
Yeah. Or maybe,
But
maybe
it's
we.
not very nice. That's not having your back.
Is that coming through, right? Is that
Is that what you're bringing? Or are you like a... That was the nicest thing that I could think of to counter the dignity and the,
Yeah, I love it. So that's it, my friends. As always, hit that like and subscribe button. Also, don't forget to check out the betterleadershiplab.com.
Yes. We've got some very cool conversations happening over there.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our back episodes of our podcast over there.
Yep.
We've got a couple little courses coming. We've got one course up there. So there's lots of little nuggets coming on the Better Leadership Lab. So go check it out.
Yep. And that's it for us. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.